You've got your application, right?
Thank you.
You don't have emails.
So you're gonna do my wife. Down the middle.
Twitchy, I gotta do something. For tomorrow morning. I have it right there, right?
Is that Joe?
Yes.
Thank you, Madam Clerk. Good evening, everyone. Welcome to our December 15th Town Council meeting. I'd like to begin. Before we begin, I just need to review our emergency evacuation plan. In the event of an emergency, we have two doors on your left and another door in the front here. In the event of an emergency, we exit the building, cross the street, and meet over at the school administration building and wait further instructions at that time. Now, if we could all stand for our pledge of allegiance and a moment of silence for men and women serving in harm's way.
Allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Thank you all. Okay. We have folks chiming in at home. We are able to stream, so the procedures are anybody who's participating at home through Zoom or on the phone. If you're on Zoom, we have the ability to see that you have an icon to raise your hand. If you're calling in, *9 will notify the host that you have a question. *6 will allow you to mute your phone. If you're at home participating or tonight in person, please state your name and address to the clerk so we can get you identified properly. Recording of our minutes. That we can take our roll call.
Mr. Hamilton?
Present.
Mr. Katzen?
Here.
Mr. Kelly?
Here.
Mr. Aguirre?
Here. Thank you. See our four councilors tonight. It's now working. Okay, President's Executive Summary. Prior to tonight's regular council meeting, we also had our executive session. There was two issues regarding litigation in the period of town of Portsmouth, as well as opioid litigation. Two votes were taken during the executive session. We have our consent agenda.
Move to approve as written.
Second. All those in favor?
Mr. Hamilton,
Aye.
Mr. Katzman,
Aye.
Mr. Kelly,
Aye.
Mr. Aguilar.
Aye. And next, we'll be sitting as the Board of License Commissioners. We have a peddler's license for a local food establishment. It's a new license, Sam's New York System, 6 Freedom Street, 1B.
Move to approve.
Second. All those in favor?
Mr. Hamilton.
Aye.
Mr. Katzman,
Aye.
Mr. Kelly,
Aye.
Mr. Aguilar.
Aye. Motion passes.
Motion to adjourn.
All those in favor?
Mr. Hamilton.
Aye.
Mr. Katzman.
Aye.
Mr. Kelly,
Aye.
Mr. Aguilar.
Aye. Motion passes 4-0. Okay, next we'll be sitting as the Board of Building Code Board of Appeals. This is something we do all that often, so bear with us here. We do have a request for clarifications as to the necessity of installing laboratory and OWTS, which is on-site wastewater treatment system, with a structure at 3055 East Main Road. Mike?
My name is Peter G. 85 One Road. So this is basically a request for clarity from the town council. Simply put, this structure is a shelter for fire office equipment. Structures such as these are necessary to shield the electrical equipment from the element and to maintain a reasonable temperature range of operating equipment. In terms of coming and going from the building, the equipment to be remotely configured and provisioned. Typical activity that would occur at the premises would include periodic maintenance and inspection of the equipment. This public utility usage is somewhat novel for Portsmouth. To bring the more resilient, reliable, and affordable broadband that only the future-proof technology and fiber to the premises can provide, shelters such as these will need to be constructed. Utilizing all methods at our disposal beyond direct funding from sources such as ARPA, can and should be utilized to incentivize fiber broadband deployment here in Portsmouth. And I'm available for any questions you may have.
So, just trying to understand, for counselors, so it's your position that you've gone to the planning board, zoning board, for construction of a building, a commercial building on this parcel, correct?
Correct. We went through all the boards of approval in February, and the building permit was pulled originally in the April-March timeframe. It was restated to indicate an equipment room. And then there was a question whether an on-site wastewater treatment system would be required for a building of this purpose. It's never been done before in Portsmouth. So that's why I just want to make sure that we did everything above the table and there's clarity about what was going to happen.
Okay. So, and so, when you went before these boards, I mean, I've been a member of the zoning board, I haven't been a member of the planning board. But I mean, you had your whole plans done up, you went forward with the septic system, right, with the design. This is essentially it's a house, right? I mean, it's a 24 by 24 structure, it's basically a building, right? I didn't see final plans, and I know it's in construction, right?
Yeah, the construction is still in progress. So various inspection, the bottom foundation inspection was completed. Working with Evan Poppy, the building was constructed in midsummer. And this is the question whether we need to install this on-site wastewater treatment system been hanging out. And we just want to make sure that we had clarity about what needed to happen. I did request principal engineering to include an OWPF just for contingency planning purposes, should that building be no longer suitable for telecom equipment and the property transfer. We just want to have that flexibility in the original plan to not have to go back in front of the board of approval to repurpose the building, so to speak.
So are you the owner of the property?
Dwayne Horton is the owner of the property. He's the member of the Aquatic Light. The Aquatic Light is was an LLC, and then we converted to a corporation. Dwayne Horton is the shareholder of the company, but I'm here as the representative of Aquatic Light and Dwayne Horton.
So I guess my own concern is, we put up the building, or you put up this building. It's gonna look like what's it gonna look like? Is it gonna look like a house?
The structure of the building is what you see today at 3055 East Main Road. It does have 2 garage bay doors. It was built that way so we could shuttle equipment in and out quite easily. And it was just a basic equipment room, and it wasn't supposed to be anything with bells and whistles. And again, this is the field telecom shack building. They're very basic and alternative in their appearance, but we want to make sure that we did something that fit the neighborhood enforcement, and we did not want to introduce the building that was out of character with the town enforcement.
So I mean, I guess my question would be, are you running water though? You're running water to the building?
But there was the water run. We tapped water just so we could irrigate the lawn, should we need to irrigate the lawn, and also it allows us to recover the soil farm. So we need to have the grass grow and mowed at least twice to recover the 4,500 soil farm. But we thought it'd be a good idea just to have an outdoor water tap on the building that had been installed already. But the actual water meter has not been installed today.
I mean, my only concern would be, now would be the time to put the septic system in. I mean, uses change with buildings and things like that all the time. I mean, you're asking for, I guess you're asking for clarity. Like I was trying to figure out clarity from the building code as to whether installing the laboratory and OWTS is truly necessary for this structure. I mean, I'm not really a building code expert. So I kind of would defer to what our building official and stuff are requiring. This is just my opinion. I don't know what other members of the council would chime in on. And to me, it just seems that having the septic system there, you know, would be, I guess, necessary really for the structure, because the use of that structure could, as you said, it could change. I mean, it sounds like it's a large 24 by 24 garage, right? Which, I don't know, it seems like the only thing that's going to be in there is a little bit of equipment work. I mean, there's going to be no office space, no nothing in there.
Basically, just to run and operate telecom equipment. There is a Verizon building on the Oliphant Lane, maybe a couple hundred yards on the right-hand side of the southern side, and it's just basically building. People pull up in a truck, they might pass a couple cables, look at the equipment, they move on. There's no wastewater treatment system in that building. The Portsmouth Water and Fire District, they do pump house on Union Ave, did not have an on-site wastewater treatment system. It just seemed to be quite expensive in terms of an overhead cost at this point in time to install such a system, if it's just merely to operate electronic equipment. And again, they're building it to protect it from dust, excessive heat and humidity, and precipitation. And that's the real reason why we need this building.
Is this building on a separate plot than the new house that was just built right next door? Or is that a continuous piece of property?
So there's a very interesting history with that parcel. There were 23 hillside roads, and then we subdivided into 3 separate parcels. Tom Principe bought the middle parcel and is developing a property, but we took the corner lot between East Main Road and Hillside Road, and then whatever is happening with the other divisional lots, they their own business.
So there would be no way of guess simplicity would be that, even with a lot to build, now you can't run a pipeline. And put a bathroom in, run a pipeline, it's wastewater treatment system is in the house that's being built.
That is true, it's owned by a separate entity.
Question, just in terms of sort of circumstances in which we are sitting here, what we are to do, as President Aguirre pointed out, we don't sit as a building has our building official, or you're looking for clarity, but has anyone provided an opinion? Yes, the building officer. I don't see that in our
Heritage, right, you know, assessment.
Yeah, sure, I mean, I would be happy, and I think the biggest reason why I'm here today is because this is a novel use for the enforcement. And this has not been done before, and this is an unprecedented type of construction for the purpose of the building. So I would like to give the podium to Garrett if you'd like to come up with the town council budget.
Come on. up.
I thought I had given you chapter 29 from the
Let's count that.
code.
Let's count that.
Okay. And if you read through that, or just look through the highlighted portion, you'll see that anyway I looked at it, they require one half bath, if you will, a lavatory and a water closet. I would love to say that it was a discretionary thing, but it's not. It's the code is the code, and to ignore it, it's not my job.
I appreciate that. So in a sense, the highlighting of the items that you highlighted here, that is your opinion. I asked if anyone had weighed in. You've weighed in and you pointed out, I think that one is what the code says.
Exactly.
Right, thank you.
Does the new building part of it,
I'm sorry.
the new building on Union Street, the new part of it, does that have any facility in it?
It doesn't, and I was unfortunately led astray by the folks at the water company, who at the time told me that they would not need a half bath in that building because they had another building right on the same property there where they could use the bathroom there. So I bowed to that. They have since divested themselves of that building. So,
So that we need to go back and have the water department put that.
well, yeah.
I mean, this is something that, again, we're not experts in the subject matter. But to me, I know that, you know, building a structure like this, I mean, this is essentially, you know, a garage. It's 24 by 24. It does have the ability to have, you know, office space in it. I know it's only storage. So if the building were ever to be reused, you know, it's going to really be hard to go in and then start putting in a septic system later on, bathrooms and such. If you don't provide for it now, this building basically couldn't really be used for anything else. It's a 24 by 24 two-stall garage.
Yes.
That's going to be there with no plumbing.
It's also on a roughly 30 by 30 lot, so I don't even know if it fits running on site.
Well, they have the design. In fact, that was part of the submittal for the building permit, was the design for the outs for that property. They, I believe, got a variance to move the front line, to decrease the front setback so that they could put the system in the rear.
Yeah, I mean, this is a tricky one because it was one parcel that was subdivided, right? This was
Yes.
one parcel subdivided, it
Yes.
should be R20. And these lots are definitely not R20 standards. So,
Well, because it's that corner lot now that's in the commercial district, that's why they have reduced setbacks.
I mean, again, I do not consider myself an expert on this. If the council wants more time to study this, we could table this to our January meeting. I'm open to some suggestions. Again, I understand the request. I definitely understand the request, because it is going to be used for equipment. However, I would be concerned that any follow-up really renders that building, I don't want to say obsolete, but it wouldn't have any utilities to it. It wouldn't have any septic system, so it would really render that building almost useless.
I would like the opportunity to get some more information. So while I agree with you, Mr. President, that installing these things now would be cheaper than installing them later and would make the building general purpose should we like if we choose to sell it or use it for something else. But that's a financial and sort of liability consideration that isn't really what's being asked of us. What I don't know is typically if we are sitting as a board of appeals or something, a decision has been made and arguments have been presented. And we are relatively clear on what our authority is to say, grant a variance or whatever. I have no idea if we've had grant a variance or, yes, Mr. Gavin.
Yeah.
The standard, as I interpret it, it says request for clarification, but Garrett, I didn't say anything that says Garrett's wrong in saying that it requires laboratory. So the standard, if the request here is for a variance, the standard under the statute is two findings the board would have to make. One is that enforcement of the code requirement would do manifest injustice. And number two, that the granting of the variance will not conflict with the general objectives of the safety. So the requirement is there, and to grant a variance, this board of appeals would need to make those two findings.
Great. This is why I think it would be useful to think about that. The purpose, to go to the purpose of building. I mean, I think about a small equipment boxes you see up these yards. Obviously, you don't need that for a 3x3 metal box. A 24x24 structure is different. But the intended use might be the same. If there's literally no personnel to be stationed there, it's just a lot of equipment instead of one 3x3 box. I don't know that the purpose of the building code addresses that. Is it a manifest injustice? That sounds like I want to know what the standards are for that.
Well, I would just say that this was before the board review in February of this year.
Oh,
And the plan submitted had the septic system and showed for that. And the testimony of the engineer was that there's going to be a person coming there once or twice a week. Being built.
Well, those are different facts than.
Right, I just pulled up a decision that was entered earlier this year. At the board of
if I may, the basic function of the building code is to protect the health, safety, and general welfare of the populace. The first part of that, the health, is what concerns me here, in that those few people who come to work there, when they answer the call of nature, are they going to get in their car and drive to Cumberland Farms or whatever? I think human nature being what it is, they will find a faster way of taking care of it. And I think that's one of the reasons why that half bath is required in almost every case.
Yeah, no, I mean, I understand both sides of it, because, you know, for electrical equipment, you don't really need, you know, I would fully agree that you don't need to have a bathroom or something like that. If it were, you know, some of these smaller sites that you see. But this is, I mean, this is a large parcel no, I don't mean a large parcel from that standpoint, but it's a big parcel that has just this small, it has a 24 by 24 electric structure. So that's, I mean, the perception is that this is, you know, a bigger facility. And if it's a code issue, I would like to at least, at this point, do a little more homework to see if it would be in our ability to grant the relief. At this point, I'm not inclined to grant the relief, I'll be honest, but I would like to do a little bit more work. And I wasn't sure exactly what we were going to be process for tonight, because this is something that happens once in a very long time. And I'd like to be fair, you know, to our building officials, and I'd also like to be fair to Mr. Pites here in reviewing this, to make sure that if we are able to grant relief, we're able to do that in a way that won't, you know, contradict some other issues. Sounds like we already have an issue with another property. And just from the information that was provided, I got the impression that from the water department that the bathroom wasn't needed because they had another bathroom close by.
That's right.
But it was their property.
That was my,
Right, but it was their property and their bathroom.
Right.
This situation, there is no other property that you guys maintain that would have bathroom for your employees. That's all I'm getting at, is really what is necessary for this, you know, for this facility. But that's all. And if there's something we can do, you know, we'll look into it. But at this point, I don't think I have enough information to make that decision tonight. And I'd like to at least, my thought would be to table it until our January meeting, where we do a little bit more research.
So that would be January 10th, second Monday. I'll get motion to table the January 10th.
All those in favor?
But we have a comment.
Mr. Ross.
What kind of heating system is in this building? And will it require one to stop everything from freezing? We need to know what's that going to cost the town.
Oh, well, I don't know if that would cost the town. This isn't a town.
It's not a town.
This isn't a town property.
Oh, it's not a town?
No,
Okay.
no, this is private. This is totally private.
Okay, I didn't know that.
But I think continue. We'll continue with our. So we have a motion and a second to continue this to our regularly scheduled council meeting of January 10th. All those in favor?
Mr. Hamilton?
Aye.
Mr. Capson?
Aye.
Mr. Kelly?
Aye.
Mr. Aguirre?
Aye. Motion passes.
Building code board of appeals.
All those in favor?
Mr. Hamilton?
Aye.
Mr. Capson?
Aye.
Mr. Kelly? Mr. Aguirre?
Aye. Motion passes 4-0. Okay. Next, we have minutes from our November 8th meeting and then our November 22nd meeting. And minutes as well.
Motion to approve.
All those in favor?
Mr. Hamilton,
Aye.
Mr. Katzman,
Aye.
Mr. Kelly,
Aye.
Mr. Aguirre.
Aye. Motion passes 4-0. Next, we have tax voucher. Request approval for tax voucher 2021 1213-01 to 2021 1213-07. All those in favor?
Mr. Hamilton.
Aye.
Katzman.
Aye.
Mr. Kelly.
Aye.
Mr. Aguirre.
Aye. Motion passes 4-0. Moving on to our town administrator's report. Mr. Ray.
Good evening, Mr. President, Town Council, ladies and gentlemen. As a participant in the trust's Trust in Safety Program, Portsmouth is eligible to receive incentive funding when we achieve quarterly results. I'm pleased to share that we have again been awarded $500 for achieving our most recent Trust and Safety quarterly goals. And so hats off to our safety committee for the continued focus on workplace safety. With respect to the Parks, Recreation, and Open Space Master Plan, the data collection and analysis phase is drawing to a close. We will next focus on public engagement and expect to hold 2 public workshops after the holidays. But to learn more about the project and how to get involved, we encourage people to visit the project website, which they can reach via the recreation webpage or through contact with the recreation director. Lastly, with respect to budget for the fiscal year 23 budget year, that process has commenced and is now in full swing. To date, civic support requests have been received and requests are being consolidated and prepared for your review in February. The first of 2 capital improvement workshops have been held, and we will present an updated capital improvement plan for your comment also in February. Training specific to budgeting software was conducted for all department heads and managers, and budget updates will be entered into the system by the end of this month for follow-on reviews between staff, the finance director, and myself over the next 2 months. And then lastly, we will present an overarching budget brief at the joint town council school committee meeting at the 2nd meeting in January. That concludes my report, Mr. President. Thank you, Mr. Ray.
To removals, resignations, and appointments. First, we have removals, mooring, assignment appeals committee. We have just the removal of Robert Marshall, Tom Swanson.
Second.
All those in favor?
Mr. Hamilton.
Aye.
Mr. Katzman.
Aye.
Mr. Kelly. Mr. Aguirre.
Aye. Motion passes 4-0. The next we have on the West Side Development Advisory Committee. It's the travel shears. All those in favor?
Mr. Hamilton.
Aye.
Mr. Katzman.
Aye.
Mr. Kelly. Mr. Aguirre.
Aye. Motion passes 4-0. Next, we have resignations from Quinnipiac Island Planning Commission. Ms. Sarah Jurgen.
Move to accept.
Second.
All those in favor?
Mr. Hamilton.
Aye.
Mr. Katzman.
Aye.
Mr. Kelly.
Aye.
Mr. Aguirre.
Aye. Motion passes 4-0. Then we have Economic Development Committee. It's the resignation of Ms. Nancy Cox.
Move to approve.
Second.
All those in favor?
Mr. Hamilton.
Aye.
Mr. Katzman.
Aye.
Mr. Kelly.
Aye.
Mr. Aguirre.
Aye. Motion passes 4-0. And next is the planning board. It's the resignation of Guy Bissonnette.
Move to accept.
Second.
All those in favor?
Mr. Hamilton.
Aye.
Mr. Katzman.
Aye.
Mr. Kelly.
Aye.
Mr. Aguirre.
Motion passes 4-0. And finally, it's the West Side Development Advisory Committee, the resignation of Mr. Tom Bennett.
Approve with regret.
Second.
All those in favor?
Mr. Hamilton.
Aye.
Mr. Katzman.
Aye.
Mr. Kelly.
Aye.
Mr. Aguirre.
Aye. Motion passes 4-0. Moving on to appointments. An appointment for the Quinnipiac Island Planning Commission. There are 2 vacancies. We have 1 applicant.
Move to appoint Mr. Ted Dietz.
All those in favor?
Mr. Hamilton,
Aye.
Mr. Capson,
Aye.
Mr. Kelly,
Aye.
Mr. Aguirre.
Motion passes 4-0. We have appointments to the Economic Development Committee. There are 6 vacancies. We have 1 applicant, Mr. Richard Blue.
Also approved.
All those in favor?
Mr. Hamilton,
Aye.
Mr. Capson.
Aye.
Mr. Kelly.
Aye.
Mr. Aguirre.
Motion passes 4-0. Next, we have the Juvenile Hearing Board. 1 vacancy. Applicant. Michael Allen.
Also approved.
Second.
All those in favor?
Mr. Hamilton,
Aye.
Mr. Capson,
Aye.
Mr. Kelly,
Aye.
Mr. Aguirre.
Aye. Motion passes 4-0. And then on the mooring assignment appeals committee, there are 2 vacancies. We have 2 applicants. First applicant is Mr. Dave Gleason. Second applicant, Mr. Tom Reed.
Also approved. This degree.
Second.
All those in favor?
Mr. Hamilton,
Aye.
Mr. Capson,
Aye.
Mr. Kelly,
Aye.
Mr. Aguirre.
Aye. Motion passes 4-0. Next, we have the West Side Development Advisory Committee, 2 vacancies, 1 applicant. Mr. Tom Reed.
Also approved.
Second.
All those in favor?
Mr. Hamilton,
Aye.
Mr. Capson,
Aye.
Mr. Kelly,
Aye.
Mr. Aguirre.
Aye. Motion passes 4-0. Next, we have the Bristol Ferry Town Committee, reappointment of Mary Beth Smith and Larry Walsh.
Also approved.
Second.
All those in favor?
Mr. Hamilton,
Aye.
Mr. Capson,
Aye.
Mr. Kelly,
Aye.
Mr. Aguirre.
Aye. Motion passes 4-0. For the Harbor Commission, we have the reappointment of Mr. Bob Drake.
Also approved.
Second.
All those in favor?
Mr. Hamilton,
Aye.
Mr. Capson,
Aye.
Mr. Kelly,
Aye.
Mr. Aguirre.
Aye. Motion passes 4-0. And finally, we have the West Side Development Advisory.
Tree Commission.
Oh, I'm sorry. Tree Commission. I moved. Tree Commission, reappointment, Mr. Scott Will.
Also approved.
Second.
All those in favor?
Mr. Hamilton,
Aye.
Mr. Capson,
Aye.
Mr. Kelly,
Aye.
Mr. Aguirre.
Aye. Motion passes 4-0. Now we have the West Side Development Advisory Committee. The reappointment of Cynthia Andriola.
Move to approve.
Second.
All those in favor?
Mr. Hamilton,
Aye.
Mr. Capson,
Aye.
Mr. Kelly,
Aye.
Mr. Aguirre.
Aye. Motion passes 4-0. Okay. On to new business. First item, it's a request to have Advertise 2022 annual fundraiser Island Park to include 384 cows as a heat signature on January 1st, 2022. Park Beach. North of Georgia Lane. I was giving you enough time to get up there.
John McKevich, 119 Content, enforcement Rhode Island, Reservoir Hamilton says enforcement on Rhode Island. Yes, thank you very much. Years ago, we started this color diving. We turned it into a fundraiser announced to the Island Preservation Society, which pays for those fireworks that we do in July or September when we get away with doing it. We did not do a color dive last year because the Department of Health limited us to 150 people. We get 150 people at jump. So out of an abundance of caution, due to COVID, no vaccines available in January, we put it off. I'd like to bring it back this year. Mike McFarland, Christian Kidd, myself. It's a simple plan. It's Saturday, it's January 1st. Light the fire, we get permission at 11:18, we jump in the water, 12 o'clock, we hang out until 12:30, 1 o'clock, and then we go to one of the local places and have raffles and pat each other on the back. We've had great weather there, and then we've had some very cold weather there. Yes,
Not so great weather.
So, but I think that the monkey on my back right now is what we did for Labor Day this year. I want to address that with this council and the flagship right here. In 2020, we had a lot of ballots, and we worked hard to pick up 900. And I came to this council, I had the receipts from Mid-City. We picked up 960 pounds worth of nails. When January of next year, I celebrate 48 years of president. If I'm going to do this, I'm going to clean up. Unfortunately, for Labor Day, the tide was not working with us. I had hoped that the tide would go out faster and the fire would burn slower. It was the opposite. The fire burned faster and the tide went out slower. And of course, it was night, so we couldn't see what was there. The tide went out, the tide came back in and it spread the debris that didn't burn up and down the beach. So that Sunday, the day after the day, I spent the whole day on that beach, about 8 hours, with my pickup truck. People saw me, I got photographs, and I picked up all the debris that I could pick up that was, available. I went back on Monday, Labor Day, nice day, sunny day, and I used my magnet and picked up 2 or 3 fish totes of nails with it. So after that, our town clerk, our town administrator, our fire chief, maybe the police chief, maybe the public works, everybody got inundated with a couple of people that were complaining about the mess I left on the beach. I didn't leave a mess on the beach. I walk the dog on that beach all the time, and I make sure that if I saw something, I would pick it up. So that's my story, and I'm sticking to it. The long story short is, I will be responsible. And by the way, a daytime burn is a lot easier to clean up than a nighttime burn, because the daytime burns, we can go back there at 4 o'clock and start raking it up. Just an FYI, we had I was asked to help the Rogers High School PTO. Night before Thanksgiving, and their beach is a lot wider, so we never have time to. And Engine 5 was there, and they did a great job. They did what we do. As this fire burns down, we just rake it all up into, makes it a lot easier to clean up. So that's what we'd like to do, and we have some pretty unique ideas for Island Park for that summer. Possibly putting some plants on those poles. So we'd like to raise some money. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Picouch. Good question, though, and maybe this is just an oversight. I know you've done it for several years, and obviously we are aware of the concerns about nails, and we understand you taking responsibility. Sky Scouts are. It is private property.
It's owned by, there's the first 4 lots as you enter the seawall on the left, were Andy Paddocky, which they were bought at a tax sale. The owner of them has not redeemed, but somebody else that I know is making arrangements for those. But we do it on John Anthony's property. John Anthony's property is 100 feet from the edge of that big opening heading north. And John Anthony owns 8 or 9 lots there. Fire Chief Floyd told me that we needed permission last to do the Labor Day burn. I went down and saw John Anthony, I described what we're going to do. He signed and he would sign again. And John Anthony, if you know him, he's a great guy. And I let him light the fire. So I was like, okay, John, thank you. So we have permission from John Anthony, and I will get a Chief Floyd. That says we have permission. And we're limited. Chief Floyd and I self-imposed that limited. We're only allowed to burn as many pallets as Portsmouth is old. We don't need more pallets. It works. Just a heat signature. That's all it's for. But I get carried away too much. Thank you.
Chief, any thoughts, concerns, comments? On our new ordinance?
Good evening, Mr. President and members of the council. A couple of things that have changed, and Mr. Vitt is accurate in saying in the past he's done a great job of cleaning up and so forth. We have had 2 different revisions this year of our burning ordinance. One of the sections that has been revised is that when we're talking a bonfire, which this is, the size will be determined by myself, dependent on the location, the accessibility, and so forth. So that's one thing that Mr. Vitt and I have to discuss further. The second thing really isn't a change in here, but it has to be on private property. Now, in Rhode Island, private property extends no further than the mean high tide line. So if a fire in the past was affected by the tide, that means it wasn't fully on private property. It was below the mean high tide line. And that's the reason why debris got swept out. So the fire cannot be, that's not private property. So Mr. Vitt has to be a little more careful in the location of it, that it is on someone's private property and the tide won't get to it and distribute that debris. We did receive quite a few emails. I went down there for 2 visits immediately after, and there was quite a debris line down the beach. Again, as I said, the tide came in, not only it put the fire out faster before the wood got all consumed, so now we have big chunks of wood floating around being deposited on the beach.
So, with some guidance,
With some guidance.
this
all
seems
four.
like it's a,
But another thing we'll have to discuss also is the ability to have firefighters there. In the past, we have had fires there. He's had some pretty large ones that ultimately needed to have somebody standing by. So we'll have to enter into those discussions.
thank you, chief. Any questions, comments?
It's a great community event. City Council just cleaned up after itself along with the rest of the Island Park Association. I would move to approve the full event. Second. Nominate Mr. Rainer for.
It's therapy, right? Cool, thanks for that.
He won't be here.
All those in favor?
Mr. Hamilton.
Aye.
Mr. Capson.
Aye.
Mr. Kelly.
Aye.
Mr. Hennigan.
Aye. Motion passes. 4-0. Thank you. And now, back up for an update on Stone Bridge and Teddy's Beach.
I thank the council, first of all, thank Chief Floyd. Yes, it was, when was the fire? Yesterday? No, Friday. I'm sorry, Friday. I apologize. I left my driveway and I saw that black smoke and I knew it was Melville, I knew it was fiberglass. And you brought some of the pictures of that yacht burning on the travel was sad. But when I saw where it was, and the chief and I talked on our way in, it was right next to my client's building, which has a number of very big wooden yachts. So the folks at the fire department, but maintaining what they did and also, keeping Mr. McMillan's building standing and those beautiful yachts. On the Stonebridge updates, I've been hanging out in Tiverton, I've been talking to people in Tiverton, I've been gathering information in Tiverton, and I have to say it's slow. And I just got, okay, thank you very much for the resolution that we have, but I'm not saying it's, as far as I'm concerned, the unanimous resolution should have some teeth. I'd like to pick up the speed in January 2022, and I asked this council to consider a committee, a Stonebridge committee. Give this some teeth. It can't all fall on Mr. Rain, it can't all fall on Barbara, it can't all fall on Gary. You know what I mean? So let a committee, and I'd like to be on that committee, and I'll fill out an application for that committee, right? 5 of us. I would limit it to 5, please, so we can get it done. And there's some interest down there, right, in Island Park. So I recommend the council consider a committee. Now, here's the big one. I would ask the council to entertain, and I watched Mr. Rain on TV last week, and he did a very good job with respect to the funds that we're getting. If there is any way, just asking that we consider getting a loan from those funds to a Stonebridge committee, or not to the committee, but for the Stonebridge. Everybody I'm talking to says, okay, you got any money for engineering? That's the first thing we need to do, is engineering. It's got to be engineered, so we know what's going to go there, and we know what it's going to cost to build. Our bridge is smaller, shorter rather, than Tiverton, and that was $3 million. The other elephant in the room, and Mr. Reno and I know this, is that it's still owned by DOT. Memorandum of understanding, with respect to the town of Portsmouth and the DOT that says, hey, we'll buy it for $1 once we are guaranteed, or once the money for the repair in our pocket, then we can do it, you transfer and we get to each of that. But I realize that it's a DOT property, so how does the town of Portsmouth, how does myself, how does the Stonebridge committee gets operated? EF5 tornado in 5 states last week. Yeah, they get a lot of tornadoes. We've gotten quite from hurricanes. I'm very, very concerned. There is, and Mr. Senator Seventy, by the way, introduced some legislation to put a request into Senate Finance for $4.5 million. I asked him where he got that number. He said, well, that's what it should go. Okay, but that I don't want it to be that much because I don't want it to get blown off. But that's it there. Mr. Edwards has also indicated that he's talking to House Finance, and that all comes to fruition on January 4th, the first Tuesday of next year, when they all go back up there. I have to say, it can't wait. Whatever you, the other councils that are not here, tonight, whatever Mr. Rand, whatever the town can do to push this And I'm not trying to say unethically, okay, but we just have to get it done. Because when we hear that that storm's coming off the sky, and it's coming for us, we do. Are we due? We're overdue. I think we are. Okay, so it's like, let's get it done, please. There's a lot of damage that could happen from that wall and what's left of it. And I know Mr. Humphrey, Mr. Hampton, but I invite any of you to call me, take a walk out there. We'll go get a coffee at the drive and then we'll walk out there. And when you see the DOT left there, you'll understand why this has to be happening now. So the two things I'm asking the council to consider is $100,000 account engineering, and then when we find the real money, we pay it back. But this way we can say to the engineering companies that are qualified to design this, we have $100 grand, and and then we put up an RFP and we see what we get. Okay. And then the other thing is the memorandum of understanding that Mr. Gavin and Mr. Ray work on relative to how we get the transfer. The Tiverton owns Tiverton Bridge, the Tiverton side from 1984. I was not aware of that. All right, so that made it easy for them. It was theirs. And then the other thing is the Stone Bridge Case Beach Committee. And then we can do this again in January, and I'll keep plugging along. Thank you for your time and consideration, and anything else that you guys can do to make this happen. I appreciate it.
Thank you, Mr. Pitt. Any comments from council? Discussion. I'm not sure. I mean, I understand the urgency that you're speaking of. I also spoke with Senator Seventy. I thought he put in a little bit more than 4.5, but it's a good number, and then maybe that is to cover design and engineering and construction. I don't know. So I know that there is some movement there. We should know a little bit more if they take action that first week of January. We really can't do anything with assigning money or any of that. It's not on our agenda for tonight. But these are things that we're hearing you, we could bring up at our council meeting in January. Yeah, I mean, it's something that we could, I'm open for discussion tonight with other councilors. There might be some things there that we could start to formulate so that we can get council direction, whether it be through the town administrator or what. But at this point, I think we have to kind of move this to our January agenda. Right.
In addition to the work that Mr. Pitt and Mr. Sonny have done, we were approached last week by members of the governor's staff to start thinking about collaboration projects with the state. So we've been asked to put a list together of these kinds of projects where they could use some of either the infrastructure money coming to the state or some of the ARPA money that they have, ARPA money that they have. And this might be, we've already discussed in the staff, and we have a meeting next week, we'll consolidate some of these ideas, bring them to you in January. And it's certainly one thing that we've already discussed. It might be.
Yeah, if they pay for it, we'll maintain it. That's a good plan. If they build it, we'll take care of it. But now these are it's a good time to start to have that discussion and at least keep the ball rolling.
It has to. We can't.
Okay. Very good. All right. So now let's just move on to number 3. It's a request of waterways analysis and management system study for the U.S. Coast Guard to lay out and establish the Portsmouth fairways.
Good evening,
Good evening.
Abigail Brown, 104 Bayview Avenue, Portsmouth, Rhode Island. I'm head of the Harbor Commission. First, before I get on, Chief, I cannot believe what you want. God bless each and every one. Okay, kids. The town of Portsmouth has 19 fairways. They're fairways that are in the water. They are there for safety reasons. The biggest one that we have is the one in Potter's Cove. The problem with it is that because of public voting, that it's increased so very much. The public is taking over these waterways, and it is a concern for the town because the first responders have a terrible time getting in and out. So Pat Rossi, on behalf of the Harbor Commission, did a study and found out that there is a free waterways analysis management system study that they will conduct for us if you approve it. Then Mr. Hamilton will go and apply for it. It will not cost the town anything, but we have to apply for it at the appropriate time so that it does not take our dear harbor master away from being a patrolman as a policeman. So it is my suggestion that Mr. Hamilton apply for this, say in the beginning of spring, because it's not going to be easy to get it. And then hopefully it can be done, and because they won't need Bruce for anything. But at least he'll be around to answer any questions they might have. And hopefully we'll be able to institute it by the beginning of our voting season, which is necessary for keeping that one open. And the other one is, I don't know if anybody's aware of what's going on in Bluegill Cove, but between the aquaculture and the public voting in there, they're taking over, and there's absolutely no way to keep that open for public responders. So this is why I'm here. I'm asking you to approve the fact that we apply for this WAM study, and I don't know where to go after it.
Okay, I don't think Mr. Hamilton wants to apply for it.
Mr.
But
Hamilton can't.
I think the town can directly, so that could be through the planning department or the harbor master. So, but we should apply for it. It's like you said, it's free.
Right.
So we can definitely take action on that and get the application in as soon as possible.
Okay, I appreciate it. Thank you very much.
So I was just gonna ask, what is the process here? Oh, we need a motion now or at some point when there's a
No, I think we just do a motion now to
offer
allow Mr. Rayner and staff to dictate from there who's going to apply for or it's not even a grant, it's an application and a request for the
I was to
poster.
authorize Mr. Rayner to request the waterways analysis and management system stuff.
All those in favor?
Mr. Hamilton,
Aye.
Mr. Paxton,
Aye.
Mr. Kelly,
Aye.
Mr. Aguilar.
Aye. Motion passes 4-0.
And if you will all speak up in the microphone, please. Message we got.
Okay. All right. Let's move on to number 4. It's a request to a temporary moratorium on medium and large ground mounted solar energy systems. What I'd like to do here for the council is, back on our November 8th public hearing, at the public hearing and amended our solar ordinance. At that time, we also discussed the framework of the moratorium. We thought we would need some more time to meet with the planning board, establish a workshop. That night, though, we couldn't enact or take any action on a moratorium. We meant to take this up at our following meeting. It was not on the agenda. It is on our agenda tonight. Essentially, this is just a 6-month moratorium. The draft of it is here to allow us the time to schedule that workshop with the planning board, revisit the ordinance, and then if there's any action that comes out of that, we'll take it up, following that workshop. And go from there, but at least this would give us a 6-month window, temporary moratorium on medium and large ground mounted solar energy systems.
Sure. The evening of the hearing, I was support the idea of moratorium, but was concerned that we didn't have the legal appropriate framing for it that evening, and so I want to thank administrator and assistant for putting this together. So now we have that, and I move to approve the ordinance as presented.
So we have a motion and a second on the temporary moratorium. All those in favor?
Mr.
We
Hamilton,
have public comment.
Mr. Fitzgerald.
Thank you, Mr. President. Brian Fitzwater, 50 Kristen Court. I just want to say that this is a good thing to do. I think this idea came from the council, and he was Mr. Katzman, so thank you. I like it the way it's put together. A lot of this is going to depend on the people who put this recommendations together for changes, obviously. I think we've debated all of that stuff with the podium and the council chambers for some time. So I think we have some good idea about what we need to put into this thing. I thank the council and recommend you approve.
We have a motion and a second. All those in favor?
Mr. Hamilton,
Aye.
Mr. Katzman,
Aye.
Mr. Kelly,
Aye.
Mr. Aguilar.
Aye. Motion passes 4-0. We have a request to approve the purchase of a new $48,055. Mr. Wood.
Council President, members of the council. Before you tonight, the last council meeting, the council approved the recommendation priorities of the American Rescue Plan. And on the recommendation priority list, the question. Before you tonight, for the request for approval of a new 2000 telephone sweeper for the sum of $248,000, $248,055.
Thank you, Mr. Wood. And now, for some folks, though, just quick refresher, the purpose of the street sweeper is to get the sand and all the grit off the road
Through our
before it goes into our catch basins, ultimately improves our water quality.
correct, that's part of our phase 2 stormwater rules and regulations that we have to speak every street.
So this, this is definitely, in my opinion, investment for the town to help, continue to make those strides towards improving our overall water quality.
It comes at $1,500 less than we were.
Believe it or not, this is only good for 30 days of support.
Motion to approve.
I believe it.
First they told us 15, but they extended it.
Move to approve the purchase of these new street sweeper.
All those in favor?
Mr. Hamilton,
Aye.
Mr. Katzman,
Aye.
Mr. Kelly,
Aye.
Mr. Aguilar.
Aye.
Thank you.
Motion passes 4-0. Next item, we have request approval to purchase a new AME what is it? Severe service fire engine for $596,196. Chief Wood.
Good evening, Mr. President, members of the council. So I'm here before you tonight to get your okay on the purchase of this engine. Knowing that we would need one at some point in time, formed a committee several months back. The committee members did a lot of research, seeking out different vendors of apparatus and their service capabilities of their repair shops. They went through different specs with them, put a lot of time and effort in. They came back to me with their recommendation, and it is this KME pumper walk through Bulldog fire apparatus. This goes right along with the plan that you have recently approved for the public safety vehicle plan. I had mentioned in that plan that I had estimated $600,000 for a new engine for this year. The bid came in at $596,196. I should say, not really a bid to quote. We're able to purchase this through the Houston Galveston Area Council purchasing agreement, which is on a list approved by the Rhode Island Attorney General for purchases through that plan.
Excellent, Chief. I know, we had a lot of discussion about this at the last meeting. So this is, we knew it was coming, and we know you can use it, so. Questions from council?
Move to approve the purchase of the fire truck.
It's a KME truck. This is like, that would be like buying a Chevy from Jones's Chevrolet dealership. Bulldog is the dealership, KME is the manufacturer.
Got it. We have a motion and a second. All those in favor?
Mr. Hamilton?
Aye.
Mr. Capson?
Aye.
Mr. Kelly?
Aye.
Mr. Aguirre?
Aye. Motion passes.
Thank you very much.
You won't have that in time for the beach fire.
No,
Yeah, not so much.
we have up to 420-day wait for that. Maybe next January 1st. Maybe.
All right. Okay, next, actually, item number 7, apologize, this one, we've had a request to continue this to our next meeting in January for some additional time, January 10th. Request we continue this to our January 10th meeting. So. Motion. Second. Yeah. No, all those in favor?
Mr. Hamilton?
Aye.
Mr. Capson?
Aye.
Mr. Kelly?
Aye.
Mr. Aguirre?
Aye. Motion. Okay, moving on to number 8. It's a request to use the CIP contingency funds. Oh, no, I'm sorry. Yeah. Contingency funds for repairs to the Glen Farm Ice House. Mr. Kelly.
So as we're all aware, we own sorry about my voice, I have bronchitis, been without it's not COVID. We own several over 100-year-old buildings. One of which is the Glen Farm Ice House. Actually, got a news article sent to me today, and it was actually built in the 1880s, so well over 100 years old. One of the first buildings built on the farm because it was necessary for the dairy operation that they were going to run. It's in pretty rough shape. We don't want to see it get in the rougher shape, like what happened with the tool shed and the wagon shed. And so I asked if the town staff would solicit estimates, and Brian went out and got one. We have a little over $200,000 left in our capital improvement, our unobligated capital improvement fund. And so I move that we spend up to $50,000. I'll give you a little bit of room, Brian. These repairs to the excess.
So all $47,000 is for the excess?
Yes. Which is also roughly the cheapest report to make it by that time as well. So it's right where
So this is an estimate that will go out to bid. Correct. You see $50,000.
Yep.
Guarantee the bid's in for $49,000.
there it is.
That's a motion.
Yes.
I'll second.
Okay, we have a motion and a second. All those in favor?
Mr. Hamilton?
Aye.
Mr. Capson?
Aye.
Mr. Kelly?
Aye.
Mr. Aguirre?
Aye. Motion passes 4-0. Moving on to item number 9. It's a request to advertise for the school committee replacement.
Yes, so we're looking to advertise for the open seat. And I believe you wanted for the first meeting in January. So I'm requesting, I'm asking, do you want it to run 1 time, 2 times? How many times do you want it to run? Are you still going to have the resume and the application form?
Yes, yeah, and we have the ability to run it at least 2 times before.
Yeah, and what do you want as cutoff?
We're gonna need it for,
I would need it for the 3rd is to meet the agenda, right? So I would say the 4th. Yeah, sure. Yep. 4th is actually around that, that's right. Do it by January 4th for the agenda. That's all. seat twice. Have the deadline of January 4th, 2022 for application. That. All those in favor?
Mr. Hamilton,
Aye.
Mr. Capson,
Aye.
Mr. Kelly,
Aye.
Mr. Aguirre.
Aye. Motion passes 4-0. And the last item here on our agenda is it's that time for our state legislative priorities. So we have a meeting with them scheduled for January 24th, right? Is that correct?
I've got responses from everybody. The only one that wouldn't be able to attend is Mr. Aguirre.
So in the past, councilors have kind of funneled their priorities to Suji Puza. In her absence at the moment, I will accept that. If you can email me your priorities, so that I can get them on the agenda for our January, so I get them on the agenda for the cutoff of January 4th. Yeah, we'll discuss it at the January 10th meeting. We'd like to discuss our priorities for the January 10th meeting, so we can present them on January 24th.
So we can prioritize our priorities.
Right, yes.
$4.5 million. So
Yes. Well, maybe by then they'll be able to tell if they got it approved.
yeah, I'm looking at Representative McClellan for that. She's the only one getting face for it right now. No, they're catching on right to you. So you don't need a motion, right? You just tell.
No, I just need council input on legislative priorities. I'll follow up with
Probably for the next 10 days.
yeah. I don't want your Christmas list. But your priority list will just thank you. That is it for our new business. Next we have correspondence.
Move to receive and place on.
All those in favor?
Mr. Hamilton.
Aye.
Mr. Capson.
Aye.
Mr. Kelly.
Aye.
Mr. Aguirre.
Aye. Motion passes 4-0. Future meetings, we canceled our December 27th meeting. As we discussed, we have January 10th and January 24th. That concludes our meeting.
Motion to adjourn.
Second.
All of in favor?
Mr. Hamilton.
Aye.
Mr. Capson.
Aye.
Mr. Kelly.
Aye.
Mr. Aguirre.
Wish everyone a happy holiday season.
See you next year.